Alright, anyway, back.
Fran asks Frandl if he is aware of a sword in that region, but Frandl claims to be unaware of anything like that and moves the conversation to the topic of asking Fran if she is an adventurer since she was powerful enough to kill G-rated goblins. Hey, let's not waste our time here explaining what ranks are because even people who are living under literal rocks know what this typical Ice-Sky adventurer's ranking system is.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where...
So, I will move on from that explanation and remind you about something more important, which is that most of you who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. These are actual statistics, so please do me a favor and vent out all of your frustrations by smashing that red button down below. Anyway, Fran, hearing the explanation, desires to become an adventurer. And while she is dreaming of becoming one, a goblin mage nearby is busy summoning a horde of deadly and mutated goblins. While this side plot is cooking, Fran's group reaches Alessa town safely, and at the gates, Randall pays for Fran's entrance fee. The master advises Fran to head to the Adventurers Guild first, as he gets to see the adventurers all around the city. On the way, the master uses his appraisal skill to locate if there are any hidden gems amongst the adventurers, and finds swords with much higher attack stats than his, making him realize that he is not that rare or legendary. Fran assures him that he is the rarest and most awesome of all the swords in the world. Hearing these heartwarming words, Master feels precious again and thanks Fran once again for being such a considerate kid. At the Adventurers Guild, the Guild receptionist Nell, who, although she shows a smile on her face, wishes on the inside for every adventurer's death. But her mood changes once she meets with the sweet child Fran, who asks her if she can become an adventurer. Judging by Fran's size, Nell advises Fran to reconsider her decision to choose such a dangerous occupation. But upon seeing how determined she is to become one, Nell approves her decision and informs her about the test that she will need to pass to become an adventurer. They head to the test ground accordingly, where the examiner named Donadron welcomes them and showcases his firepower.
Jason, need a demon?
Test examinees get...
Alright, good go, review. Alright, let's go. Let's go. I like going to... I tell you my dog stick a lot, okay? Yeah, I'm so excited. Alright, guys.
He had to become a sword. The divine ruler of the world connects to his consciousness and gives him a small message, telling him to be safe and have a fun journey. Realizing that it might have been God who just spoke to him, the man accepts his fate and wonders if he has any superpowers since this is a fantasy anime world. He wonders even more with great focus. The excessively overused Ice-Sky system menu appears in front of him and shows him that he has the appraisal skill. Using that skill, he appraises himself and finds out that he is an unnamed intelligence type weapon and has more basic skills like self-recovery and telekinesis. He also notices that some of his skills are makes him assume that he may be powerful as a sword. At least now, he won't need to waste the first 2 episodes grinding EXP points to become moderately strong. The man also assumes that he is a legendary grade weapon.
Back too.
Shiny gold materialistics. He attracts the nearby goblins.
Oh gosh,
The goblins try to pull him out of the ground. The man's sword gets enraged and declares war against them. Immediately, he pulls himself out of the
ground. We can do this?
His skill, which is the ability that grants him the ability to move certain things without using any neurological connection. With the help of this power, he attacks the goblins. And each gives him a sense of accomplishment, as if he is doing something that he is made for. As he defeats every single one of the remaining goblins, he levels up, and the status board shows that he has gained quite a few experience points. He also gains a new memory skill, which makes him question what it even is. At that moment, a voice from the system speaks to him to give him all his answers, and assists him in assigning all of his skills to his dashboard. He grinds a few more experience points, and this time he gets vigilance and poison resistance as his new skills. Now that he is done testing his abilities, he goes back to his original place and laments the fact that he still doesn't have a wielder. Speaking of his future Fran reveals to be somewhere nearby alongside a group of wood collectors and shows her shackles, indicating that she wants to get rid of these shackles and achieve her freedom. Fran hopes of becoming strong and begs the 6 winds to grant her divine powers. On the other hand, the man's sword increases his skills to become worthy of his future wielder and also hopes to become the strongest sword in the world. Because of leveling up so much, he unlocks bonus magical skills and becomes even stronger over time. He eventually becomes bored of grinding aimlessly, and so he begins to spy on the goblins to find out where their lair is. After discovering their lair, he eradicates every single one of them.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me, see them.
Meanwhile, Fran's fellow slaves get tortured by the slave.
Oh gosh.
She fails to stand up for them because of her being restrained. She tries again and again to revolt against her slave holder, but to no avail because of her collar, which electrocutes her every single time.
Yeah.
And that makes her beg God to give her some powers at least. In the meantime, the man's sword is still keeping himself busy by eradicating all of the monsters in the forests.
Okay.
Becoming even stronger as the days go by.
Right.
He divides his surroundings into 5 circular areas, and after examining them thoroughly, which includes that the further he travels, the stronger the mythical beast becomes. He still travels throughout these areas to explore, as he doesn't have anything else to do in his life, and he comes across a lesser wyvern, who at once
I guess they buy me, huh?
in the park. But instead of running away, he fights the lesser wyvern as he knows that he will get tons of experience points if he manages
Oh
to
damn, let's go.
and since he is the main character, hopefully he won't die in the first episode.
Okay.
With confidence in mind, he slays the wyvern and thanks to his self-recovery skill,
Nice.
heals up parts of himself. He keeps grinding his skills and acquiring all sorts of abilities in a very short time. But that doesn't fulfill his appetite, and so he defeats more mythical beings and challenges the boss of the farthest area from his spawn.
There you go. Why'd you go start showing bossing me?
After cruising through this battle, he activates the self-evolution skill and acquires a new skill called instant regeneration that has an even quicker healing process than self-recovery. And to test out this new overpowered skill, he challenges even stronger bosses like the
There you go. What now? You can start with bosses now?
Because of
I could try to keep it alive.
doppelganger skill, which he uses to
My
create a
doppelganger skill, huh?
so unimpressively transparent that he discards the skill for the time being.
Okay.
He visits the northern side of the forest and comes across the boss Blast Tortoise, whom he defeats using earth magic. After slaying the rather easy boss, he travels to the west and fights the Saber Dragon, who is apparently vulnerable to poison effect. So, the man's sword uses his convenient poison needle skill against it and becomes stronger than ever after defeating it.
Oh my
That
gosh,
means
Jimmy.
he's gained experience for an entire week. He
I
makes
see it
his
too.
way to the next area of the forest, which is beyond Area 5, and as he travels in the air, he notices how there aren't many powerful monsters nearby in comparison to the previous areas. So, he takes a break for a moment and suddenly gets deadlocked into a location
Oh
which
gosh,
makes him
Jimmy.
wonder why he is being able to move even though he has the telekinesis skill. Moreover, he notices that every skill that he is using is being absorbed by the ground. Hey, let's take a moment to investigate why this is happening.
You guys keep curious us to gobble acid.
Being the smartest detective on the planet, I, El Lawlier, think that the reason behind the sudden deadlock of the man's sword is illogical, and only forced by the bot so that he can meet with the cat girlfriend. Let's see and find out if my speculations are true or not. 3
Okay.
days pass, but not even a single bug or a butterfly comes near him, making him wonder what on earth is happening. 10 more days pass.
Oh my gosh, 10 days has passed?
Passes by him. So he begs the god to at least send something on his path, even if it's a zombie or worse, a little
Lost.
baby. But still nothing happens, and a month goes by just like that, and around this time, he loses all of his mental patience and begins to go insane. He wonders why he even grinded for all this time if his fate
Same
was to
here.
become trapped in a barren land. To prove to the gods that he is a useful tool, he uses all of his points to learn cooking and cleaning, hoping that maybe one of the gods will take him as their housewife. But still nothing happens, and so he only begs for his death. That's when a sudden storm takes place and leads the slave group near where the man's sword is, and as they reach, they're being chased by a 2-headed bear.
Oh my
All of the
gosh,
slaves
Jimmy.
begin to die one after one. After the slave holder's eventual death, Fran and the remaining surviving slaves gets free from their locked collars. And
Let's go!
the of them all, Fran picks up a wooden stick to protect her friends. But since she stands no chance against a literal 2-headed monster, she again wishes to become strong, and this time she finds herself right beside the man's sword. As
Ooh,
she
okay.
instinctively holds the sword. The sword uses his telepathy skill to communicate with Fran, telling her that he will help her become stronger than ever and instruct
Let's
her to
go.
pull him out of the ground quickly. Seeing the talking sword, Fran remains unimpressed as ever and tries to pick him up with all her strength. But since she is just a weak little baby, she of course fails to do so, and so the man's sword gives her a
Gosh,
good
me.
head start, and this time, she successfully draws the sword
Let's go.
of King Arthur, and for the first time, realizes how beautiful of a sword he is. She properly equips the man's sword and gets registered as the wielder on his system. This time, she manages to properly use the sword for the first time and picks up a fight with the fierce 2-headed bear. Through skill sharing, Fran learns all of the skills that the sword has and becomes quite the strong sword. As she feels like she has been using the sword for days, smoothly slays the two-headed bear. At that moment, a wicked noble arrives and Fran explains to the sword that he is another one of her owners. The owner, noticing the sword on Fran, tells her to give it to him, and she resists. He begins to beat her up and reminds her that she is bound to him because of the slave contract. The man's sword doesn't like how the little girl is being treated, and so he uses his telekinesis skill to break the wicked noble's neck.
Oh my gosh.
He then frees Fran from all of her shackles and also frees her from her slave contract. This time, Fran freely wields the sword and tells him about her wish to become the strongest, as the sword promises to be beside her forever. The girl introduces herself to him as Fran and asks him his name. But since the man's sword doesn't have a name yet, she gives him the name Master and gives him the responsibility to teach her how to become stronger like that. From then on, they begin their journey together to help Fran evolve into the unknown. Apparently, beastkins like Fran in this world have the ability to evolve, and once they reach their evolution, their physical power moves to the extreme, making them even stronger.
Okay, Mom. But Mom, I think I destroyed her.
But because her tribe was the weakest among all beastmen, none of them managed to evolve, including Fran. Her parents, too, dreamt of evolving themselves and worked hard to achieve it. But they ended up dead because they pushed themselves too hard and left Fran all alone in the world to suffer. With them gone, Fran pledged to discover the key to evolve and went on her own journey to achieve what her parents wanted. Even though she is just a 12-year-old kid, she is the most devoted person ever. And now that she has the strongest sword, the Master, by her side, she is ready to grind experience points to become as strong as him. So she picks up the sword and goes to eradicate a nearby goblin village, where they are just minding their own business. She uses the sword technique triple thrust to kill the goblins and levels up quite a bit. As the days go by quickly, Fran improves her skills in terms of strength and even learns to use water magic with little to no guidance at all. But the only thing that makes her stand out is not the fact that she is diligent, but also that she cares for her sword and cleans him regularly. Her considerate side makes Master cry. He expresses how grateful he feels to have such a good kid. Life is a sword to help Fran evolve from a black cat to a black cat. She equips Master and begins to head in the direction she senses the danger coming from. It looks like a new character's carriage is being ambushed by a horde of goblins. And
Oh God, who are goblins?
at the last line of defense. But Randall seems to be too much of a wuss to do anything and takes the L, but fortunately, Fran comes there just in time and
Let's go, my God.
attacking goblins. The sword teacher uses his own skill, Kill Aura, and splits all of the goblins into pieces. This cheat move surprises Fran, and she also learns from him how to use this overpowered move. As the remaining goblin runs away, scared of Fran, the merchant and Randall get relieved as they are finally saved. The Master gives Fran a heads up not to reveal that they can speak to each other, as that would attract unnecessary attention, and then instructs her to socialize with the strangers. Fandel formally thanks Fran and claims to be on his way to a town called and since she is his savior, he offers her a ride to that town. The Master realizes that Fandel actually wants Fran to safely escort his carriage to the town. But still, he advises Fran to accept Fandel's offer, as he doesn't think Fandel is a guy with any bad intentions.
Oh, what do you think now,
Fran
though?
accordingly and gets inside the carriage by a beast who seems to be not so fond of her. So, she doesn't speak to him and instead socializes with only Fandel. She learns from him that there is an ranked magical realm nearby, and due to the monsters in that region, weaker monsters like goblins are forced to come close to where the town is.
Alright, anyway, back.
Fran asks Frandel if he is aware of a sword in that region, but Frandel claims to be unaware of anything like that and moves the conversation to the topic of asking Fran if she is an adventurer since she was powerful enough to kill G-rated goblins. Hey, let's not waste our time here explaining what ranks are, because even people who are living under literal rocks know what this typical Isekai adventurer's ranking system is.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where...
So, I will move on from that explanation and remind you about something more important, which is that most of you who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. These are actual statistics, so please do me a favor and vent out all of your frustrations by smashing that red button down below. Anyway, Fran, hearing the explanation, desires to become an adventurer. And while she is dreaming of becoming one, a goblin mage nearby is busy summoning a horde of deadly and mutated goblins. While this side plot is cooking, Fran's group reaches Alessa town safely, and at the gates, Randall pays for Fran's entrance fee. The Master advises Fran to head to the Adventurers Guild first, as he gets to see the adventurers all around the city. On their way, the Master uses his appraisal skill to locate if there are any hidden gems amongst the adventurers, and finds swords with much higher attack stats than his, making him realize that he is not that rare or legendary.
Oh gosh.
Fran assures him that he is the rarest and most awesome of all the swords in the world. In these heartwarming words, Master feels precious again and thanks Fran once again for being such a considerate kid.
Yes.
At the Adventurers Guild, the Guild receptionist Nell, who, although she shows a smile on her face, wishes on the inside for every adventurer's death. But her mood changes once she meets with the sweet child Fran, who asks her if she can become an adventurer. Judging by Fran's size, Nell advises Fran to reconsider her decision to choose such a dangerous occupation. But upon seeing how determined she is to become one, Nell approves her decision and informs her about the test that she will need to pass to become an adventurer. They head to the test ground accordingly, where the examiner named Donadron welcomes them and showcases his firepower. Although most of the test examinees get scared out seeing the fierce Oni. According to Nell, Fran remains unaffected and unfazed as ever. The Master appraises Donadron, and upon seeing his stats, he tells Fran that Donadron is undoubtedly her strongest opponent to this date.
Yes.
But still, Fran remains unfazed and begins the exam filled with determination to become an adventurer. As the battle begins, Fran makes it clear to Oni that she is not to be underestimated and evades all of his attacks safely. After playing around for a couple of minutes, Fran changes to the offensive, and with the help of her master's magic, she temporarily increases her strength and agility. With this boost, she manages to make a scratch on the Oni and trap him in a place using earth magic. The Master then uses his own fire magic and causes a huge explosion that burns up even the fiery Donovan. As Fran finishes off the Oni smoothly, Nell ends the battle full of wonder as to how a mere child can possess such a high level of power.
Oh my gosh,
Clint learns about this news and scolds the Oni for showcasing such disappointing power. But before scolding him, Clint first congratulates Fran on becoming an adventurer.
Let's go.
And asks her how she possesses this much power that she can chantlessly cast level 10 magic spells. Since Fran can't reveal that it wasn't her who cast the spell but her sword, she tells Klimt that it's a secret and tells him that she cannot expose her secret as that would also expose her weaknesses. Klimt chooses not to respect Fran's decision and tries to act oversmart by trying appraisal skills on her. She blocks his appraisal with the help of the Master, and that raises some concerns in him. But since he doesn't see any ill intent in Fran, he lets her be for the time being and agrees to issue her guild card. They head to the sacred-looking place where Fran is supposed to register her mono wavelength before getting her guild card. After registering her mono level on the glowing cyan crystal, Fran learns from Nell that she will need to choose a class 2, and if her class matches her skill sets, she will gain a boost in abilities for that class. Nell tries to determine which classes are best suited for Fran using her mono wavelength, but the result shows that Fran is compatible with all adventurer classes in existence. At this point, Klimt is not even surprised and instructs Nell to just go on with the carding process. Fran chooses to be a SwordMage, as that is what she feels fits her skill set the most, and registers her guild card. Now that she is an adventurer, she will need to worry about being homeless and broke, and to become rich. She will sell all of her lifetime loot that she saved in the Master's dimensional pocket to the guild. Fran receives around 200,000 gold and immediately gets targeted by a group of scum beastmen adventurers who try to pick up a fight with her just because she is a little girl. They even demand to give her all her own money. And seeing this bullying, Nell comes there in full support of Fran, telling everyone to mind their own business. They attack Nell instead and try to turn the guild into a battlefield. They even go on to discriminate against Fran, bad-mouthing her Black Cat tribe, and the comment enrages her so much that she uses Master's Kill Aura to cut off one of the adventurer's legs. She follows up by beating up the rest of them and making it clear that she is not the one to be messed with. Now that all of the adventurers have a clear image of how strong Fran is, she leaves the guild to look for armor and a tavern to live in. As she begins to look around the market, Master tells her that it would be best for her if she bought some good defensive gear. But being an immature kid, Fran procrastinates instead and plays around with the living, breathing toys at the market before doing her actual task. She keeps walking through the city, Alessa, and learns from the people around her that there is apparently a highly skilled blacksmith who can make any armor in existence.
Ooh, let's
Speaking
go.
of that rumored blacksmith, Gallus, he shows up behind Fran and tells her to come to his store if she needs any armor. Fran gets creeped out by blacksmith Gallus and asks him straightforwardly what his business is with her. Master also gets wary and uses his appraisal skill on Gallus, which confirms that Gallus is indeed a highly skilled blacksmith. Master also learns that Gallus is the honorary blacksmith of Granson.
Oh, let's go.
And as he informs Fran about this, she asks him directly about this information. But instead of answering her question, Gallus invites her to come check out his store first. So, after getting permission from Master, Fran follows Gallus to his store. On their way, Fran asks Gallus what piqued his interest in her, and he honestly replies that when he saw her fight at the Adventurers Guild coincidentally, he set his eyes on her, and specifically on her sword, Master. But he doesn't reveal this part to Fran and only tells her that since he feels that she is worthy of getting his stuff, he is taking her to his shop. Fran happily goes there, and as she equips her first armor, she receives a stupid-looking armor that only covers up her chest area, her 2 cat ears, and her legs, even though an actual person would like this armor. Since this is an anime created by a man who only cares about subjectified beauty, Fran claims to love the so-called armor. She buys the highly expensive armor with most of the gold that she earned previously, and calls it a win-win bargain. But she reveals that she is not done buying her equipment and tells Gallus to show her some swords, even though she owns the rarest one in the world. Gallus gets surprised to hear that Fran wants another sword and questions her purpose, revealing that he knows Master is an intelligence weapon. Fran fails to figure out how the old man figured this out, as Master is actively using one of his skills to block appraisals. Gallus explains that his eyes are special and he doesn't specifically need an appraisal skill to determine if something is...
Morning. Any plans for the day yet? If not, why don't you hang out with me? Nice to meet you. I am Navia, the esteemed president.
Special. He reveals that he actually has an ability called Godsight, which has let him clearly see how much of a divine weapon Master is. But Master himself doesn't think that he is special and directly contacts Gallus using telepathy, asking him why he thinks that, as he has seen many stronger swords than him, even though Gallus himself knows that Master is an intelligence weapon. He gets shocked to learn that Master is conscious and can speak, so he again claims that Master is one of a kind and advises Fran not to look for another sword. Gallus explains that even though the swords in his collection have more base attack stats than Master, Master surpasses all these swords by far because of his magical powers. There is also the part where Master possesses more mana conductivity, and to explain that, Gallus brings out one of his swords that has more attack power than Master's and tells Fran to attack it after imbuing 100 mana on Master. She does accordingly.
Oh my god, you guys bacon!
He breaks the entire sword apart, making Master realize that he is actually super strong if used correctly. Theoretically, if Master imbues more mana in himself, for example, a sum of 2,000, his attack stats will also exceed the number 2,000, turning him into a godly weapon.
Let's go!
The confidence in Master.
Yes.
And he excitedly brags to both Gallus and Fran about how strong he is.
Yes.
Fran and Master off hug to celebrate their newfound strength, and seeing him do childish things like this cringes out Gallus. So he changes the topic and asks Master about his creator and his name, because Master has no recollection as to how he was created or when he was created. He simply tells Gallus that he does not possess those memories, but since Gallus has the ability to have Godsight, Master asks him to use that skill to determine Master's origins. Although Gallus doesn't have that much ability, he uses his intellect to figure out who might have created Master, because Master is a self-conscious sword who also exceeds in every fighting ability. Gallus assumes that he must have been forged by a being who falls into the category of a divine blacksmith. According to Gallus, a divine blacksmith is a legendary blacksmith who is capable of creating extraordinary weapons that apparently can even tear open the skies and the lands.
Oh my god,
these blacksmiths aren't just urban legends, and 5 of their existences were actually confirmed in this world's historical records. So, to sum all of this up, it means that Master is also a legendary grace weapon, and that gives him another stroke of ego boost. But Gallus tames it down, telling Master that he still lacks a considerable amount of power to be considered a legendary grade weapon. Revealing that he, with his own eyes, has seen what an actual legendary sword looks and feels like. According to Gallus, that legendary weapon was Ignis, the Sword of Flames, which had an attack power of 1800s and was rated as an SS-ranked weapon. And since Master only has a meager 2 to 300 attack power, Gallus doesn't think he meets the requirements to be considered a true legendary weapon.
Yeah, same
As
here.
Master gives up hope of becoming something rare, Fran also gives up her hope to comfort Master and puts her focus instead on Gallus's hammer that he uses to make the weapons. She picks it up while Gallus is busy conversing with Master and brings out a bunch of loot from Master's
Oh my
dimensional
gosh.
to use it to make a new weapon. The
Aye.
materials seem to be D and C ranked,
See ya.
unlike the F ranked materials that she sold earlier to Nell at the Adventurers Guild. Dallas becomes happy seeing the strong materials and agrees to make
Yes.
Fran whatever weapon she wishes to have in exchange for the remaining materials for his payment. Seeing him fired up all of a sudden, Fran remains uninterested as ever, and her
Why?
rather bland character makes me uninterested in her as well. Anyways, Fran gives Gallus a month to make her new and better equipment, and then leaves his workshop with Master to get some undergarments next, because what better use of a girl in an anime would it be without showing her private parts? But because we don't support degeneracy, let's skip this part and see where Fran goes next to buy her cooking equipment. She goes to a shop called Saber Teeth and meets with a rather unreliable store owner named Rufus, who looks to be an intermediate adventurer. Fran asks him about it, and he explains that he retired from being an adventurer 3 years ago. Rufus asks Fran if she is an adventurer, and as he learns that she is quite ambitious, he tells her to freely look around in his shop and choose whatever she wishes to buy. Fran first collects some tableware and spices and leaves the store, making us wonder if there was even a need for being introduced to Rufus.
Oh
as it
gosh.
gets to be very irrelevant. Master remembers the time when he was deadlocked for an entire month and how he learned to also cook and clean to become God's housewife.
Same
Now
here.
that he is Fran's housewife instead, he proposes to cook for her and tells her to quickly find an inn to stay in first.
Okay.
As they reach a quiet and peaceful-looking tavern, Fran hands
Right.
the receptionist her guild card, as that appears to work as an identity card as well. She then gets assigned a room and gets excited for the first time in her life, as she didn't get to have such luxuries when she was a slave. So, she thanks Master first for freeing him from her slavery and hugs him tightly. To give her even more comfort, Master promises to cook something for her, and in addition, he also promises that he will protect her and look after her until the day she evolves into a cat girl.
Okay.
As it is time to make dinner, both Master and Fran take their time to cook some fresh fried chicken. Fran gulps down all of the super tasty chicken, and after filling her tummy, she begins to take a big, long rest, since Master doesn't have any other work. He thinks of what they will do the next day and tells Fran that they should take guild quests starting tomorrow. He also shares his plan to convert his experience points to increase his recovery magic.
Alright.
As they do not have any healers in their single kiddo
Same
farm.
here.
Master also plans to level up some attack skills, but before he can share his idea with Fran,
Yeah.
he notices that she has already fallen asleep.
Oh gosh,
Meanwhile,
if you-
the side plot that is still cooking shows that the Goblin Mage has successfully
Whoa.
created an army of mutant goblins who are ready to become fodder for Fran and Master. Speaking of Fran and Master, they head to the forest the next day looking for healing grass and
Aye.
antidotal berries as well. Because a G-ranked adventurer's tasks are rather simple. Most of them only consist of gathering herbs or doing delivery commissions.
Okay,
And
Sam.
that is why Fran is here at the fort, collecting herbs to do her quest. While collecting some flowers, she senses something in the west direction and begins
Oh, gosh.
to head in that direction, sensing imminent danger. An adventurer party reveals itself to be in trouble caused by some goblins who look
Whoa.
to have the upper hand on them. As all of them begin to lose hope and give up, Fran goes there to help them out and takes them out one after another using goblin magic and pure claymore sword attacks. After finishing off the goblins, Fran heals up the injured adventurer party using the recovery magic hat she learned just yesterday.
Let's
She
go.
introduces herself to them as a regular G-ranked adventurer. As she bids them goodbye now that the goblins are taken care of, the group stops her, telling her about the imminent danger that will happen because of a Goblin King's appearance. Apparently,
Goblin
around
King,
this
huh?
time, the Goblin Queen is also born and affects the goblins so much that they evolve and mutate on their own. The King and Queen's offspring increase their numbers so fast that a horde of sea-level threats is created in no time.
Oh,
And
what do
since
they do?
this is happening just on the outskirts of the city, Alessa, this adventurer party thinks that the city itself will be in danger.
I think we need that
Fran
toy
decides
thing. We
to
like
take
to
the
have a
fight
toy.
herself
Let's see
and
if
tells the
it's-
adventurer group to head
Yeah, I
back
know.
to the city to... She then heads on her way to destroy more goblins who come there because they don't care for their lives
Oh,
and
gosh.
become livestock for Fran to farm. Even though she is much stronger than these measly goblins, she realizes that she is way too outnumbered and begins to struggle against them. So, Master advises her to retreat, but she doesn't give up, as she has made up her mind to never back down. She shows her resolve to fight and makes Master question if he is even the main character or not, since he just showed himself to be a wuss. As he questions his own resolve, Fran explains that she is only taking this fight to become stronger because she considers herself to be too weak. She shows her determination to push her own limits, as she wishes to become strong enough to be able to use Master's divine powers to the fullest. Her resolve paves her way through the goblins, and also makes Master realize that Fran doesn't want to be protected by him, as she wishes to be a strong, independent woman. Her unwavering resolve creates a newfound resolve in Master 2, and he too uses his full power to assist Fran in her goal to defeat all the goblins in the jungle. But no matter how many she slays or slices, they keep coming and coming.
Oh my gosh.
Fran remains unfazed and keeps fighting until sundown, until her body gives up on her. She takes a breather and reveals herself to be on top of a pile of dead goblins, showing how badass she is. Later in night, she visits Gallus's workshop wearing her torn-off armor. Seeing her damaged state, Gallus asks her what type of monster she fought to get this exhausted. As he learns that goblins caused this, he asks Fran about the numbers and learns that Fran has slayed over 100 goblins. Although he is shocked by her achievement, he doesn't congratulate her, as he knows that's not why she is here. Fran explains that she wants Gallus to repair armor and informs Chen that she wishes to also take on her first dungeon to subjugate all of the goblins the day after tomorrow.
Let's go!
Gallus doesn't understand what Fran means when she says that she wants to kill goblins in a dungeon and asks her to elaborate. So, Fran explains that when she was done killing all of the zombies in the forest, she followed a trail and found the goblin nest at sunset. But since she didn't have a plan or any energy to fight, Master advised the nest and made her go back to get the dead goblins' loot. When she went back there, she came across the adventurers' party she met previously. Who came there along with some other adventurers to subjugate the goblins. But since they saw that Fran took care of all of them herself, they asked Fran if she had any other information and learned about the goblin's nest, which, according to one of them named 11, didn't even exist a month ago. Upon taking a closer look at the nest, 11 claimed that the nest isn't just an ordinary lair, but a dungeon, which explains why it appeared out of nowhere. Since dungeons can spawn out of the blue, it's only natural that the goblins inside are more powerful than the ordinary ones. The heavy armored adventurer Krull informed Fran about the guild master wanting to have a word with her, and asked her to return to the town immediately. And when she went back to the guild and reported to Klimt and Oni about the situation, they both ended up becoming full of stress and ensuring that this was a grave situation, according to Klimt's speculations, since the goblins in the forest didn't flee back to their nest even though Fran was slaying them one after another. Klimt thinks that the nest has been occupied by a stronger and even more powerful mutated goblin race who are hiding their presence for a big scheme. And upon figuring out that the nest is actually a dungeon, Klimt immediately issues an emergency arrest order to all adventurers for the subjugation of the dungeon. Because of Fran's achievements in solo leveling today, Klimt updates her rating to F rank from G rank and tells her to prepare for the worst. Coming back to the present, Gallus uses his own magical skills to repair Fran's armor, and explains that his repair magic lets him restore an item to its original condition. But Fran seems not to be interested in that and asks Gallus if he has any clues about what a dungeon is. Being the intelligent dwarf he is, Gallus explains to Fran that a dungeon is a place where a trial is held for humans and is created by the god of chaos, who spawns these dungeons out of nowhere to test humankind's true strength and their limits. Getting into a deeper explanation, a dungeon itself doesn't appear out of the blue. The small dungeon core slowly spreads its roots, making the creatures around it break their strength limits so that they can become the dungeon's boss and kith to the god of chaos. These dungeon bosses are called the dungeon masters as well, and they possess intelligence and knowledge that let them create a literal maze using the same dungeon core. Moreover, the dungeons that existed before the medieval age had their own separate environment for the rare monsters that lived in them. These ancient dungeons still exist, and apparently, if an explorer is strong enough, they might end up finding precious minerals and magical weapons as to how these treasures exist in these dungeons. Some scholars believe that these treasures are sent by the god of chaos for the humans whom he deems worthy. Fran wonders if the god of chaos is actually not evil, but no one can tell that for sure. Gallus moves on from the conversation, as he too is not sure if the god of chaos is good, and hands Fran her repaired armor, but she fails to put it on herself, and so Master helps her wear it. After she is done wearing her armor, Gallus bids Fran his goodbyes and tells her that he will be counting on her to eradicate the goblins. Later at the end, Master takes a moment to look at Fran's status board and finds out that she has ranked up to level 12, which has led to upgrading her substats as well. Master also finds that Fran has achieved a new title called Goblin Slayer for having slain over 100 goblins.
Okay.
Of course, this title is not just for show and also gives her stats significant boosts. But hearing that, Fran remains uninterested as ever and looks outside through the window with a gloomy expression on her face. Master goes to calm her, even though he knows that his recovery magic won't be able to cure her mental fatigue. So, he uses the strongest healing abilities to help her feel better, and that is human language. He pats her on the head and tells her that he feels proud of her because of how hard she has worked today. She feels better and wishes to take a bath, so she asks Master to join her. She explains that she doesn't have any ill intentions and only wants to clean him since he got rather dirty in today's fight. Did I mention that I am not a degenerate? Yeah, I did. So let's skip this stupid part made to give the viewers some real fan service and head over to the part where Fran meets the guild receptionist Nell after taking a good long shower. Nell tells Fran why she and some other adventurers are here at the inn at this time and explains that this inn is actually directly run by the Adventurers Guild. That is why a receptionist like her can also use the shower free of charge. Speaking of showers, Nell realizes that Fran took Master along with her in the shower, and so she scolds her for bringing a weapon inside the bath. After making her understand the rules of the inn, Nell asks her if she will be taking part in the Goblin Dungeon subjugation, and as Fran nods as a sign of assent, Nell wishes her the best of luck and also tells her to be careful since this will be her first time tacking on a dungeon. Although Nell knows Fran is quite the strong adventurer, she still advises her not to push herself too hard as she is still just a kid, because kids like Fran are getting involved in something so dangerous. Nell blames the vice captain for all this because apparently he was the one who didn't let City Alessa have any knights and put all the work to the adventurers. Fran asks more about the vice captain and learns that his name is August, who is a noble and conveniently isn't fond of adventurers. In fact, he is so against the adventurers that he has refused to send any knights from his end because he wants only the adventurers to suffer in the goblin subjugation. Nell gets stressed over this quickly, so she calms herself down first and hopes that the ranked adventurer named Amanda hears this news. According to Nell, Amanda is so strong that she alone is able to handle the goblin dungeon and is considered to be the Adventurers Guild's ace card. But high-ranking adventurers like her have been sent to a faraway land to investigate an anomaly that was probably caused by Master when he was grinding experience at the very beginning. Nell also blames the god of chaos for suddenly spawning the dungeon near the city and wonders why he is so full of mischief. Since Fran didn't get much information about the god of chaos from Gallus, she asked Nell about him, hoping that she knew any viable information. Nell claims to have only read about the god of chaos, and according to what he has learned, the world itself was created with the combined forces of the 8 main gods: the sun, moon, sea, land, fire, storm, forest, and beasts. These gods created the world and life itself with the help of another god, the god of the underworld, who created the cycle of samsara in another world, the cycle of death and life, and established the laws of the world. After the creation of the world, these gods' eventual descendants were a total of 78, and they made the world even more versatile. The last remaining god of the main gods, the goddess of chaos, for some reason, began spreading chaos throughout the world to make people long for development and self-improvement. So, it is said that dungeons are also the creation of the goddess of chaos to prevent people from stagnating. And since, according to Nell, the goddess of chaos is a woman, Master wonders whether she is hot or not. Anyway, Nell is not sure if the goddess of chaos is good-natured or not and asks Fran if she has any other questions. Although Fran shouldn't be familiar with this term, for us fans, she asks Nell the obvious question, which is whether the god of war from PS4 exists in this world or not. According to Nell, the god of war did exist in this world, but soon turned evil because of his own greed and challenged the other gods for more power. Because of his insolence, he was severed down into pieces and sealed across the world, indicating there is a plausible way to revive the god of war. Apparently, from these scattered seals, some auras are released frequently, and these auras generate goblins, orcs, and other magical monsters. So, to sum it up, all of the evil monsters in this world are the kin of the evil god of war, and this excessive amount overloads Fran, causing her to go to sleep. Later at night, Master wonders which god it was that wished him good luck on his journey when he first came to this world, as he now knows there are many, but since there are no answers to his questions, he doesn't give them much thought. The next morning, Fran goes to meet with the blacksmith Gallus again and receives a special sheath for him to keep Master inside.
Whoa,
Master puts
let's
himself
go!
inside the sheath and begins to feel immediately as if it has become his permanent home. So, he thanks Gallus for such an amazing gift and gets ready for his dungeon debut. Gallus wishes both Master and Fran the best of luck, and they both head to the subjugation team all fired up. The Oni, Donadron, reveals that he is in charge of the subjugation team and decides to have a strategy meeting regarding the goblin subjugation before heading inside the dungeon. According to the Oni, there is a dungeon master inside who is responsible for mutating the goblins.
Oh, damn,
and if they manage to defeat him, then they will truly be able to clear the dungeon. But before the operation begins, the Oni tells everyone to set up a temporary base to make the necessary preparations. But it seems that they have no time for that as a horde of goblins charges out of the dungeon and begins to attack them out of nowhere. As they begin to harm the assembled adventurers, Fran decides to be the hero to help them out and steps forward. Her presence scares off the goblins because of her title, Goblin Slayer, and as she finds her paths blocked to the cave, she uses the move that she hasn't mastered yet called Mid-Air Jump and basically walks in mid-air, just like Ms. Marvel if you have watched that series. The Master uses fire magic on the goblins next and begins to explode in the areas where they are standing. Fran follows up by using a sonic wave attack and slicing off all of the goblins that are blocking the gates of the dungeon. She notices that tons of goblins are crammed up at the entrance, and so, with the help of Master, she blasts the entrance with advanced fire magic and clears a path for all of the adventurers to head in. While she enters the dungeon first with the hope of killing the Goblin King and Queen, the Dungeon Master reveals that she is still in a delusion that the adventurers are in a panic because they were caught off guard. He reveals that he has created another high-level monster and hopes that with this monster's help, he will be able to create his own goblin empire. I bet he won't, because this anime isn't called Reicarnated as a goblin.
Oh my gosh,
Oni and the subjugation party follow Fran's lead by entering the cave and begin to slay goblins themselves. They decide to hurry up like Fran because they don't want Fran to take all the dungeon loot herself. Meanwhile, Fran runs straight inside the dungeon with no fear in her heart, as she reveals that she has a teleportation feather, which she can use anytime to teleport out of dungeons in case things get out of hand. She goes deeper into the dungeon and comes across another group of hobgoblins who approach her slowly, but Fran slays them easily and begins to pass through every single one of them. She takes their mana crystals after killing them and levels up as well, thanks to that. More goblins stand in her path, blocking her from going any further, and so Masters blasts every single one of them and turns them into a crisp. Now that the path is cleared, Fran begins to move forward again and takes a detour as she sees another opening on the left. Seeing how deep the path leads, Master assumes this path leads to where the boss is and wonders if we should alone go check it out. He remembers having the search skill and uses it alongside presence, vibration, and heat detection to pinpoint the boss's location. As he activates the skill, the system shows him two hobgoblins in the middle of the path, and Fran scares them off, hoping they will lead them to where the king and queen are. Meanwhile, the Oni seems to be having little difficulty taking down the hobgoblins because Fran has taken care of most of the goblins alone. Seeing how normally strong Fran is, Eleven asks Oni Donadron about her, as he is curious to know who she even is. Donadron claims to not know much about her and reveals that the only thing he knows is that she is very, very strong. Even so, Fran is still just a kid and could get into danger if she lets her guard down. So, to protect her, Oni instructs everyone to keep moving forward. Meanwhile, Fran actually finds the lair of the Goblin King and Queen, and as she gets an audience with both of them, Master senses a powerful aura coming from both of them. Because of the natural laws of this world, when the goblins sense intruders, they gather around the king to protect him and are doing it currently. As their numbers grow, Master considers making a strategic retreat, as he doesn't want Fran to end up being outnumbered. Additionally, the king and the queen are also very tough opponents, so any distractions in Fran's path will cause her trouble. But Fran doesn't like the idea of backing down and tells Master to come up with some other strategic plan to deal with the goblins. Accordingly, he makes a plan to blast magic onto the surrounding goblins to distract them and instructs Fran to use the chance by leaping away straight for the heads of the king and queen. Although the plan sounds simple, I don't think the execution would be as easy as that because never before has Fran faced opponents who are that much larger in size than her. Still, let's see what happens and find out the result ourselves. According to the plan, Master first activates his dual spells, Parallel Thought and Double Chant, and then blasts the goblins with his Flare Blast attack, creating a giant smoke at the same time. Master follows up with another pyro attack and creates so many smokes in the surroundings that it becomes easy for Fran to leap through as she goes towards the Goblin King and Queen. Thinking she will remain undetected, she finds out that they are already dead because of Master's overpowered attack. Seeing this gets Fran into tears, not because she is responsible for separating a married couple, but because she didn't get to be the one who killed them, and she blames Master for stealing her moment and makes him apologize to her for quite a long time. After getting her mood lightened up again, she asks Master if they are done with the subjugation now that the king and the queen are dead. But Master is not sure because there is still a chance that the dungeon master is someone else entirely. So he begins to walk along with Fran to the path that they left off on earlier. As they reach the end of the path, they find a red wooden door leading to an auspicious room. As Fran opens the door, thinking that the dungeon master is inside there, and begins to walk through a new path, the door behind her closes, making it obvious that she wasn't supposed to come here. Master also gets a bad feeling about this, so he tells Fran to be careful instead of acting carefree. As she puts on her guard, she senses herself being surrounded by a horde of ladybugs that are even bigger than her. As these thousands of ladybugs start to attack Fran, Master himself freaks out and wonders how he is supposed to deal with so many of them. Let me interrupt with my Pokemon knowledge here. Bug Pokemon are strong against grass and other dumb types. But bug Pokemon are weak against fire, flying, and rock Pokemon. And guess who has the biggest power? You guess it right, the magical sword, who is a reincarnated middle-aged, below-average man. Even after my expert advice, Master doesn't listen and uses telekinesis to stop the bugs' movement instead of just deep-frying them all using one of his advanced fire magic spells. Anyway, thanks to him deadlocking the bugs, Fran slays them one after another and shows off her slice and dice cooking skill. And after 30 minutes of making disgusting bug sushi, she still barely makes a dent in the bugs' huge numbers. As if hundreds of bugs weren't enough already, more get summoned by the unknown summoner. So, Master puts all of his focus into figuring out who the summoner is and locates the bug army's leader, who has a reddish body. As Fran is exhausted, Master finally takes my advice, begins to deep fry the bugs, and lets Fran kill the bug army's leader. But it seems that the quest is still not over as another path opens for her, revealing a blue door this time. This time, Fran hesitates to head inside as she senses a strong sense of mana, but since she is with her sensei, she musters up the courage to head in. But before that, Master uses his abilities to temporarily increase Fran's resistance, and also gives her a sensory boost, which enhances her senses and reflexes. But he is not done yet and gives more boosts to Fran, like a physical boost, a stamina boost, a strength boost, and a regeneration boost. Now that the preparation is done, Fran heads in with the goal of not dying and gets welcomed by a magical beast who claims this to be the last part of the dungeon. On the other side, Guild Receptionist Nell goes to Klimt's chambers, asking him if the Oni and Fran will be able to pull off such a difficult mission themselves. While Klimt is sure that they will be fine, Donadron reveals that he will not be that fine as he fails to open the red door, let alone the blue door. With no ray of hope coming from Donadron, it is all up to Fran to defeat the final boss, who seems to be quite cocky. Master wonders why he is so cocky, and as he checks his stats, he finds out that the final boss is actually a greater demon who has abnormally huge stats, making him the strongest opponent that even Master has ever faced. The greater demon also reveals to have extra skills and dark magic, which Master isn't even familiar with. So, Master asks the system about the greater demon and learns that it's a B-grade monster and is capable of destroying an entire nation by himself. Hearing this, Fran only gets excited and tells the greater demon not to look down on her, claiming that she is quite strong. The greater demon enjoys Fran's boldness and laughter, which the dungeon master doesn't like, and tells him to get rid of the girl already, even though the dungeon master is not even F-ranked. His managing to command a B-rank monster makes Master wonder if this Ice-Sky world has taken inspiration from the real world. But it seems that the inspiration itself is not enough, as the greater demon doesn't look to be as obedient as he should be. He moves on from the chit-chat, though, and brings out a crimson sword to attack Fran. So Fran quickly channels some of her magical points into Master to increase his attack power, and gets ready for the fight. She shows herself to be strong enough to be able to withstand against the greater demon and gives credit to her sword, Master, saying he is quite special. But the demon doesn't think her sword is very special, and compares it to his own, revealing how majestic it is. This only angers Fran, and she furiously attacks the demon and manages to knock the sword out of his hand. But then she gets too overconfident and almost loses her life as the greater demon cuts off both of her hands completely. Thankfully, Master is there to save her before she loses her entire fighting spirit and heals her left hand completely using advanced recovery magic. Master doesn't blame Fran for being careless, as he too realizes that the demon must have been using some sort of skill to get into their blind spot. On the other hand, the demon doesn't understand how a sword can move freely like that and comes behind Fran again to attack her from her blind spot. But the same attack doesn't work this time around, and Fran blocks it off successfully. Her quick response only entertains the demon, and he keeps charging at her from thin air. Master figures out that the demon is using shadow magic and instructs Fran to go mid-air. But even after that, she fails to get the upper hand and blindly charges at the demon again, as she doesn't have the guts to back down. Because of her strong attacks, the demon acknowledges her as a powerful swordswoman and steals her skills using one of his unique skills in the blink of an eye, because he now possesses the same powers as Fran. He claims that there is no way for her to win now and tells her to pray for her death. He then brings out his sword and announces that he will now take as much time as possible to torture Fran to her death. He charges at her with overconfidence and gets shocked upon seeing that Fran can still dodge his attacks, meaning that his skill-taking ability didn't work on her. Fran also reveals to Master that her skills are still intact, and he realizes that since they both share the sword skills together, the greater demon needs to use his skill taker ability on both of them at the same time to steal their skills. The Goblin Mage, who is the dungeon master, laughs at the spectacle and mocks the greater demon for being rather incompetent for not being able to defeat a little girl yet.
Come on!
To help the greater demon get the upper hand, the dungeon master uses the power of the dungeon to summon what he calls the strongest elite goblins. These elite goblins immediately go to attack Fran, but get blocked by another attack made by the greater demon, who makes it clear that he is in need of no assistance and warns the dungeon master not to interfere in his business again. He turns to Fran and tells her that he no longer wants to play games anymore and would like to get this over with as soon as possible, as his main goal is something entirely different. He reveals that he and the dungeon master intend to get out of this dungeon as soon as possible, and wish to destroy as many human cities as possible to create their own goblin empire. But since Fran has the plot armor, there is no way the greater demon is getting past her, let alone exiting dungeons or destroying human cities. Anyway, the demon attacks Fran with a spell called the Darkness Voltecker, and it creates such a huge impact that even where the Oni's group is standing begins to shake abruptly. Because of this sudden earthquake, the Levant realizes that the little girl Fran must have engaged in a battle with the dungeon master here, and wonders how strong the last boss is. The Oni gets impatient and tries to slash open the red door. He decides to break open the door by using whatever means necessary, as his top priority now is to rescue Fran. Speaking of Fran, she looks to be having a hard time in there, and so Master decides to use the teleportation feather to get out of here. But Fran stops him, telling him that if they run away from here, the greater demon will eventually free himself from this dungeon and enter the human city with his new goblin army. Since Fran has grown to be attached to Gallus's shop and the Adventurers Guild, she just can't let the greater demon do whatever he wants to and tells Master to assist her by lending her his power. Although Fran's initial desire to become stronger was so that she could evolve, now that she has her own people to protect, that has strengthened her resolve to get stronger even more. And this realization makes Master feel proud of her. That's why Master feels certain that Fran will become stronger and stronger in the future, and will one day surpass his strength. So, as her teacher, he doesn't want to hold her back and assures her that they won't be leaving this battlefield until they have defeated this final boss. She seems to be at ease hearing these words from the Master, but the demon doesn't like that and keeps on attacking her with his dark magic. Since Master is making little to no contributions at all in this battle, he finally decides to get involved in it and wonders how they are going to damage the greater demon, as sword skills alone aren't going to be enough. The greater demon literally begins to spam the Q button and keeps hitting Fran with his black bomb attack. As she starts to get overwhelmed by the demon, Master begins to wonder what they should do in this circumstance and tries to find a loophole. After a thorough investigation, he figures out that the demon is trying to avoid injuring the dungeon master, meaning that he is his weakness. So, he tells Fran to attack the dungeon master instead, and as she tries to blast him from the distance, the greater demon jumps right in front of him and tanks the attack to save him. This helps Master figure out that if the dungeon master dies her, the greater demon will most probably die as well, which also explains why the red and blue doors are closed. Because if Oni's party managed to come here, then the demon would have become greatly outnumbered and would not have been able to protect the dungeon master. Regardless,
see it too.
now that the weakness is exposed, both Fran and Master begin to blast the Dungeon Master with their combined fire magic. But they realize that this is going to be a stalemate, so they put a stop to the attack, and Fran throws her sword at the greater demon.
Oh my gosh,
the demon doesn't realize that the sword can move itself, and because of his misjudgment, Master pierces right through his crystal core and kills him with full throttle. But because he uses all his mana, Master begins to break apart, which makes Fran think that her sword is dying. Speaking of death, the greater demon...
Oh my gosh, he's actually going dead, Ken Walker?
Which is absolutely
He's going big
satisfying.
hassle.
Anyway, Fran begins to cry while holding Master, and as he no longer responds to her, she becomes more sure that he has passed away. But since Master is the main character here, he reveals himself to be just alive, and absorbs the nearby crystals from the greater demon to recover himself. Fran gets in disbelief that her mourning was for nothing and gives Master a death stare for scaring her for no reason. To confirm that he is indeed alive, she asks him again about how he is regenerating himself. And in reply, he explains that he has the ability to restore his magical powers by absorbing crystals from any dead monsters. Feeling deceived, Fran calls her teacher a baka for scaring her for no reason and warns him not to make her worry like that again. But at the same time, she also finds it amazing that her teacher is such an amazing weapon who even has the ability to regenerate himself. While she is celebrating her win, she forgets the fact that the actual boss of this dungeon, the Dungeon Master, is still there and is scheming something else. While she isn't paying attention to him, the Dungeon Master uses the Dungeon Core again to try and summon more greater demons. But because the Dungeon Core lights up once he interacts with it, Fran notices it and cuts him off quite literally. Now that she has killed the main boss, the dungeon changes itself and transforms into a much more shiny room. With the dungeon cores disappearing, Fran celebrates her first dungeon clearance with Master and regroups with Oni's team, who show themselves now that all of the work is done. Oni's squad learns about Fran's great feats, including her killing the Dungeon Master and also the B-grade monster, the Greater Demon. As they don't believe that she was single-handedly able to defeat such a great threat, Fran confirms that she did and even adds how greatly strong the Greater Demon was. Although nobody believes her, Oni trusts her since he once received a good beating from her and feels glad that she is now safe. Although she has cleared the dungeon herself, that doesn't exclude her from the rules, and since she didn't listen to the commands of the subjugation party leader and acted on her own, Oni decides to punish her for it. So, after giving a good, long scolding until Fran passed out, Donadron stopped and began to return to the city. While on their way back, Master looks at the statistics of their stats, and speaking of statistics, the YouTube statistics state that most of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed, and to turn my name L into a W, I really need these subscribers. Moving back to the video, Fran reveals being quite mad at Master for putting his focus on statistics while she was being torn apart by Oni's words. Master realizes that he accidentally turned on the telepathy mode, which let Fran hear all of what he was saying to himself. But he still tries to make it out of this situation, making excuses like she must have heard something wrong. He finds the greatest loophole of all and promises Fran that he will cook her some delicious curry.
Let's go! Curry, huh?
Thinking about having curry in her tummy. But the funny thing is that Fran doesn't even know what curry is, even when she is drooling, and asks Master to tell her what it is. Master explains to her that curry is actually something like a stew that is made with vegetables and spices, giving it the taste of heaven. Master adds more to his explanation, telling Fran that the curry is actually served over freshly steamed rice, which makes it even more delicious. He also adds that the entire curry with rice can be eaten with meat, and this emphasis causes Fran to literally starve, as she begins to shout, repeating the word curry. Curry, the Oni wonders if she has gotten a few screws loose since she fought the B-grade monster, but they are still far from home. So Fran wonders what she will do after eating curry and decides to work on her sword arts and sword techniques. Since magic itself is not a reliable factor when facing a strong enemy, sword skills can actually come in handy in unfavorable situations. Master, too, agrees with Fran and decides to max out all of their skills right away. He opens the system menu, and as he does so accordingly, they both unlock new high-level skills called Master Sword Arts and Elemental Swords. According to the system, the Elemental Sword lets the user control the 4 elements by letting them imbue their magic into their swords. This makes Fran realize that she can shroud her sword in flames, making her sort of like a C6 Bennett. If any one of you cultural gamers understands this reference, let me know in the comment below if you actually like C6 Bennett. Moving back to the video, Master remembers that he stole Greater Demon's Skill Taker signature ability when he beat him and wonders what they should do with him.
Sword
Since it's a cheat skill, Master believes it will be quite useful for Fran in the future
Yes.
and maxes it out to level 10. Fran comes up with a rather evil idea to strip Oni of all his skills to get revenge on him for causing the but Master doesn't let her do something
Oh gosh,
so
something
unethical
evil
and
had
tells her
died,
to
huh?
only use that skill when facing real troublesome opponents.
Yes.
A while later, Fran heads to the Guildmaster's office and gives
Oi.
him a broad report about what happened at the dungeon.
Oi.
Hearing everything, the
Yeah.
Guildmaster expresses his gratitude to her and admits that if she didn't interfere with the subjugation,
Oi,
there
Bill,
would
give
have
me
been
that.
countless
Oi,
casualties
give
since
me
the
that.
subjugation party wasn't prepared to fight a B-grade monster. The Guildmaster Klimt gets done with the paperwork and then presents one final question to Fran, asking her to explain to him what happened to the B-grade monsters, Core Crystal. Klimt explains that it's such a high-level jewel that countless countries will try to get their hands on it, and since they will eventually know that a 12-year-old girl possesses it, they will target her to steal the crystal for themselves. Of course, Fran cannot reveal that her master here has absorbed such a valuable orb for mere
Same here.
regeneration, so she claims that the crystal disappeared when she killed the B-grade demon, although Klimt knows this is a lie. He lets this matter
Roll
go as he
again.
doesn't feel any ill
Roll
intentions
again.
coming from Fran. But a
Roll again,
pedo-looking
bro.
knight doesn't let this
Again.
slide and calls out Fran for lying
Roll
right in the
again.
Guildmaster's
Again.
face. Fran doesn't argue about the
Hi,
allegation
wait,
and
play
instead
all you
asks
see
the
anyone.
guy about his
Right, all the time I didn't do it.
identity. He reveals himself to be the gayest character in existence
Oh, gosh,
who has
really?
the ability to even annoy gay people. No, actually, this guy is Vice Captain August, who, if you remember, according to the receptionist
Yeah.
Nell, has something against the Adventurers Guild. Mr. August, being the vice captain of the Alesha
Oh,
Knights,
gosh, no.
of course likes to slack off as his physique
That's
speaks for
fair.
itself. And
That's-
now that someone else has done what was his job, he is now here to interfere just to make the plot even more annoying. Although the concept of cringe doesn't exist in this world, Fran still cringes out and tries to ignore August as much as possible. Although nobody asked, August goes on to explain why he claims that Fran is lying and reveals that he has a unique skill called the Essence of Falsehood that allows him to see through all deceits. And that means that no one can lie in his presence. But Master knows that this is technically not a lie because the crystal did disappear when the B-grade demon was defeated. So, he asks Fran to tell August again that she didn't lie, and it
Yes,
didn't
same here.
disappear. She does so accordingly, and she again gets
Yes.
accused of lying by August. This time, Master finds it strange as he didn't notice August using any skill, let alone a unique one. And as he uses his appraisal skill to see what this fatty is all about, he discovers that August is actually a low-ranked knight with
Oh my
awfully low
gosh,
stats
me.
for a person of his age. In addition, his sword art is only at level 1, even though he claims to be not only a knight but also the vice captain. And
Yeah,
speaking
same
of
as him.
equipment, August has a presence concealing ring on him, which explains why Master was not able to detect his presence when he came near.
Oh gosh.
As for the unique skill, August actually wasn't bluffing when he said he had the essence of falsehood. But the skill doesn't let him turn into a lie detector, and according to the system, it's a skill that, although it allows the user to see through others' lies, also makes their own lies more convincing and harder to discern, meaning that even if someone doesn't lie, he can accuse them of lying with the full support of everyone around him. For
Oh gosh,
example,
me.
if a person lies about stealing, he can not only see through their lie but also accuse them even if they are not lying, thanks to his skill. And since he always goes around telling others that he has this unique skill, everyone naturally comes in support of him and arrests
Jeez.
whoever he is accusing. Because of such power, August can
Yeah.
convict others as criminals as he wishes to, essentially abusing his unique skill. And even now, he is trying to abuse his skill just to mess with a little girl for his... his own amusement. But the guild master isn't a fool and shows his full support to Fran.
Same as
stating that
him.
neither he can hand Fran to the knights nor can he punish her.
Yes.
Klimt thinks that Fran is telling the truth, but he also believes that if they try to mess with her, she will end up becoming their enemy, and Klimt doesn't
Aye.
think August will be able to handle Fran on his own. He also states that Fran has single-handedly slayed a B-grade greater demon, and
Yeah.
so there is no chance of her being captured for telling a simple lie. Though August has lost this argument, he still stands firmly on both of his feet as he still hasn't lost the battle, and tells Klimt to hand the loot, and the crystal of the greater demon to the knights is compensation for Fran's lies. But Klimt shows no intentions of doing something so stupid and gives a clear statement that the materials have been officially turned over to the guild already. And even if Fran is lying about not having the crystal, it will be rightfully hers to own. After all, she is the main adventurer who did the subjugation and the knights refused to participate. So, Klimt doesn't think August has the right to show up after the job is done, let alone claim any of the gains. August tries to make up an excuse, explaining why he didn't dispatch any of his knights for the subjugation. But Klimt isn't listening to his foul excuses and tells him to go back to Captain Eurus and complain to him if he has any further problems. As August claims that he doesn't have any problems, Klimt still decides to talk to Captain Eurus regarding this matter, and that causes him to get into an argument with August. Fran steps up to stop both of them and gives the two of them some goblin horns to settle this matter. But August finds her innocent behavior dirty and throws all of her goblin horns away from her hand, leaving her completely dismayed. This time, Fran feels seriously insulted and asks Master if she can just go ahead and kill August. Master, of course, doesn't give her permission, as she will end up in prison forever. So, Fran refrains herself from doing so and instead uses her skill-taking ability on him to teach him a lesson, as she successfully steals the unique skill essence of Falsehod and the normal skill court etiquette from August. The system registers the new skills for her, making her happy once again. To infuriate August, Fran tells him a blatant lie, saying that she is over 100 years old, and asks him if she is telling a lie. This time, August fails to answer her, as he no longer possesses the skill to determine that and gets creeped out because of his own
my god, he gets him
to figure out what's going on and leaves the place. Now that the annoying balloon is gone, Klimt apologizes to Fran for the inconvenience and explains to her that August is a foul man who only got this position because of his money coming from a major noble family.
I said too.
Klimt also reveals that he has figured out that Fran has stolen August's skills. But
I think I need to do it once. Anyone, I think I'm going to here. I know that second I got Tas's video, so anyone to do part 2. So anyone to watch this video and a lot of views, I come back to this and watch the second Tas's video. Anyone. So anyone, how I show you video on the regarding Sean Army, took out Army series, and a leak your comment, oh god, and I hope you guys please, this. You guys just change this goal. That's the goal. I see you guys next time. What's that you guys say? That's it. Then hit the peak and help me call us, and that's the goal. I see you guys next time. Goodbye.